like, I can't believe you're telling people that I'm a helpful person. I was like, oh, sorry we said you'd respond to a DM and be a nice guy. I'll make sure to cut that out next time.
Come on, let's go!
Welcome to Circles Off, episode number 160, right here, part of the Hammer Betting Network and presented by Pinnacle Sportsbook. I am Rob Pizzola. Johnny is off again this week, so we have fake Johnny in studio with us, but this will be a guest episode and a familiar one for a lot of people out there. It was a hit last time we had him on. It's caused a lot of controversy.
You don't give him that to pump his tires.
Oh, yeah. Keep lathering up, baby.
It was a hit last time he was on. I can say that. Listen, we gotta spit facts here on this show. Now, this is not my idea for an episode. Well, it kind of is, but it came from some other place. So, what's happening here is Circles Off is growing. This is not just me like patting ourselves on the back, but we're increasing in subscriber count. Appreciate everyone who has liked and subscribed the past podcast. Do that right now for this one if you haven't already. But we're growing here. And with that comes a new audience. And with that comes some comments. People DM us to the Circles Off Twitter account. They DM me personally. They're like, Rob, just found Circles Off. This is amazing. I cannot go back and listen to 159 previous episodes. What are the best ones? Which ones do I need to go back and listen to? And I certainly have an opinion on what that is. But Johnny's would be different. Zach's would be different. Everyone's would be different. So we decided we're going to get a listener of Circles Off to come on and give his opinion. He is a crucial member of Hit the Books, second most important person on the team. Obviously, Brad Powers, number one. Joey Knish joins us on Circles Off.
I mean, some people are calling out after Kirk last week said, maybe Mr. Electric, a.k.a. Joey K, a.k.a. Mr. Electric on. Yeah, and you know what? There's nothing better. Nothing more I love doing than a good rankings, mostly because that allows me to put some people at the bottom. So, yeah, this should be fun. I loved the idea. And we did ruffle some feathers last time, which is fun, which is great content. Even for people that weren't in, like, the worst tier. I remember our guy plus EV Analytics is like, I can't believe you're telling people that I'm a helpful person. I was like, oh, sorry we said you'd respond to a DM and be a nice guy. I'll make sure to cut that out next time. But yeah, no, it was a good one, and looking forward to another banger.
Yes, hopefully it is another banger. I do want to remind everyone before we get into it, if you're looking for a banger of a sports book, that's going to be Pinnacle Sportsbook. Make sure you check them out. Football season is approaching. In fact, we're in football season. The Canadian Football League is going on right now. Markets are getting steamed all over the place. It's a crazy time to be a Canadian football bettor, but for whatever you want to bet on, all your betting needs, check out Pinnacle Sportsbook. They've been in business for 25 years for a reason. Find out what sharp bettors have known for that time. Pinnacle's where the best bettors play. You must be 19 plus, not available in the U.S. And as always, please play responsibly. All right, let's do it. We're going to have some structure to this show. It's not just going to be all over the place. We've had a lot of guests on. I had to prepare a spreadsheet for Knish here so that he could make notes. He could see who all the guests were in the past. Of the previous 159 episodes, 82 of them were guest episodes. So pretty decent amount. We're like right around 50% of them have been guest episodes. That's a lot, 82. I can't believe we've interviewed 82 guests. I was going through the list. I don't even remember some of these interviews. The first 18 were audio only. So for those of you who just found us on YouTube here, we had 18 episodes that were audio only guest episodes. We'll include them in here. It's Knish's floor. He's going to be able to give out whatever he wants here. But for structure, Knish, I was thinking we go down this path, 5 categories, okay? Category number 1 is our S-tier GOAT episodes. That's the best episodes of all time. We put them in that category. That's number 1. Number 2 is our overrated episode list. Now, overrated, it's really hard to define that because there has to be a general rating on it in the first place. But these are episodes that we're going to say are generally considered to be really good or ones that have racked up a bunch of views and listens. So if we think that it doesn't hold up to that standard, it goes in the overrated episode tier. Then we got the exact opposite. Underrated episode tier, episodes that are generally considered to be forgettable. People don't talk about them a lot. They didn't rack up that many views, but Knish actually thinks they're really good. Then the fourth category is the what the fuck were you thinking category, which is the worst episodes. You might want to avoid these. I'll let Knish, speak his piece on those. Fifth and final category, which I decided to throw in last minute, is I would like this episode much more if the guest wasn't a dork. I know Knish, and dork is like, it could, whatever adjective you want to use, but I know for sure with Joey here, going through this list, there's some guys he doesn't get along with. He might want to admit that the episode is probably a little bit better because of that category. So all clear on the 5 tiers, or do you need any more clarification?
No, I read it a few times even before you got on just to make sure.
You expect me to believe that you actually did that?
No, I didn't. I actually, because when I was asking you right before the show what were the tiers, I had forgotten them. But now that we went over it, I'm good to go again. I like it to keep it organic and speaking off the cuff.
Yeah, I wanted to do this for the listeners to give them the criteria, but I also I knew I had to do it for you as well. There was no chance we were going to get into it. So 5 categories. We're going to start with the first category, S tier / GOAT episodes. The best episodes, guest episodes of Circles Off go into this category. Who do you got and why?
Listen, I think this man should even have his own. The tier itself should be named after this man in this episode. And it's episode 81, the great, the legendary, the former Pinnacle, hashtag, sponsor segue here, former Pinnacle, whatever he was there, trading something.
Yeah, head of growth, I believe.
Head of growth, yeah. The title always confused me, but Matthew Trenhale. Needless to say, my favorite episode of Circles Off ever. I've genuinely listened to it probably 5 or 6 times. I think it's the only episode I've listened to more than twice in history. It is so jam-packed, full of incredible information. And, a little tidbit, does he give Knish some sauce in that? Did that play a factor? Yeah, I'm an unbiased source, maybe. But incredible episode. It had so much. If you're just whether you're a rec guy or the sharpest of the sharp, there's stuff in there for you. Also, and I've always said this about Trenhale, he takes what are incredibly difficult concepts or complicated concepts in sports markets or trading, or kind of the finer things in sports betting, and is able to explain them on a level that almost everybody that can understand. Also, good guy, good personality, great talker, has a way about him. Probably should be a politician. My favorite episode of all time, the Trenhale tier, the GOAT episode, Matty T, number 1. I got a couple close, but that to me is a number 1 with no competition. Yeah,
I would totally agree with you. I remember actually pretty vividly remember recording that, which was in our old studio. And there's episodes that when when me and Johnny do Circles Off, and Zach knows this as well, the episode ends and we pretty much have an idea of whether it was good or not. You can just feel it in the moment. And that was an amazing episode. I'd love to bring Matt Trenhale back on. I probably will. But the standard is so high that it actually makes it challenging to produce something that can live up to that again. I think he was by far, I don't want to say by far, but he was definitely one of my favorite guests that we ever interviewed. And I don't like to listen back to my own episodes too often, but that was one that I've listened to multiple times as well. So definitely has to be there, certainly in the Mount Rushmore, and right on the top of the Mount Rushmore, as you said, Knish, in its own tier.
I mean, it just and if you dig, I'm not even sure, these were hard to find. He used to do his own podcast, and he actually sent me some of the old episodes that I don't know how easily accessible they even are anymore. When he took the job at Penny, I think he had to do a little cleanup. but he's even got gems everywhere. Listen. I don't know what Moreto's been doing, but if he was doing his job, Matt Trenhale would be working for the Hammer hosting a podcast. I tell you some of that. So you know what? I would tell you if we need to get somebody else on the network, that would be my first choice. But I agree. I think Trenhale, an all-time episode, in 881, a must listen. With a couple others that are in that. Can I go to another one?
Yeah, go. I will say, just so that Moretto doesn't reach out to me afterwards again and be like, why are you letting it? Moretto has, he's done a good job assembling, content creators here, decent job. He does some work. We're not just going to entirely throw him under the bus, but very valid point, which I will bring up in his employee performance review as well.
Yeah,
why he hasn't reached
and
out
hopefully
to
I can, weigh in as well on that as a C-level member here. You know what's another an episode that I think has to be in this tier because of what I would call the rarity, the anticipation. One of the early episodes, the early guest episodes, and it was episode 11, Abnormally Dis. Just because literally nobody. I mean, this guy had been on the forums going back 15 years to play. I mean, a man of mystery. And I don't know. I mean, very few people had actually, done core business with him. And I don't know if anybody had ever heard him speak before. And it was a fascinating episode. I thought you didn't know what you were going to get. But it was one, to hear his backstory and some of the things he did, some of the incredible things he had done through the career. It was just one where it's a one of a kind. A lot of people that you've interviewed have done public appearances elsewhere. Maybe they've hosted their own podcast. Maybe they've been on multiple other podcasts. This was one that I don't know if he's also a guy that commonly does his cleans up his Twitter. Like a lot of the stuff that he's provided in the past just may not exist anymore, or you have to kind of be, you never know when he's going to kind of clean that data. That's an episode that I think has to live in infamy because it's one of those one-offs that I don't think a lot of other pods could have gotten or or may never get again. So it was a fascinating one for me just because he's an interesting character and a guy that never puts himself out there, and that's that type of environment.
Yeah, I actually like that breakdown quite a bit. That was back in April of 2021, so quite a ways ago, over 3 years. I have also listened to that episode again more recently, and what I personally loved about that episode was it just felt like a conversation. It went very long. At least a couple hours. This was actually even before you, Zach. I don't think you were a producer at that time.
No.
But it was very conversational. It just was like a bunch of guys. It was me, Johnny, and AD. We were just hashing it out. But I agree with you that there was he had come on the scene, especially on gambling Twitter. No one knew anything about him. No one had really talked to him. And the allure, like the mystery kind of who this person was, really made that episode pretty large. So that was honestly probably the taking off point. I mean, it was only the 11th episode of Circles Off, but it certainly set us on the right track of okay, this is actually a really solid podcast that has to be listened to every week. So 2 for 2, I agree. I did this exercise myself separately from you, Knish, and that was also an S tier episode for me.
Yeah, and those two were the ones that I think I would call them in their own tier. And I call it the Trenhale tier, and the one member of the Trenhale tier is AD. And I think those are the two. If you're only gonna listen to two, or if I was on the beach somewhere and I only could listen to 2 episodes of Circles Off, for the rest of the time, those would be the two. And I don't know if I would say there's a close third for me as far as those two kind of seem a level above. Except for the Joey, you didn't list Joey Knish in any of that. I don't see it myself on the list, but I would have, I would have put myself.
I did list you on the list. Episode 142.
Yeah, I was wondering why. I thought that must have been a typo or something, or an Excel dump that failed. But those would be there as well.
I just want to pick your brain on a couple other ones. Barry Horse 1, which was episode, what was the first Barry Horse episode? I want to say it was after Trent Hale, so it was episode number 95, Barry Horse 1. To me, that was a banger, like a certified big bomb banger.
I guess I wouldn't put it in the big. I thought it was a good episode. I maybe I'm a little biased here of kind of knowing a little of the information. I think if it's one of those when Barry Horse, I think initially first blew up on the sea, like the timing wise, I just knew a little more about Barry Horse than when the episode came out. So there wasn't that same level of intrigue as the AD episode. Like if that happened when Barry Horse was first doing his like MLB run during, that would have been like, oh my God. But it was a good informationally. I learned some things about it. I think if you're someone that's into that, his story of kind of how he gained an edge or does, accounts and stuff, I think it's interesting there. It wouldn't be in the elite tier for me though.
And then episode 121, Shipper. I told Zach,
you think I'm gonna come on here and put one of the Aussies in the elite tier? I mean, listen, I've got a reputation to uphold here. You can take that Shipper episode. Listen,
it was a really good informative episode. Like, yeah. This guy had been roasting me on Twitter for years, roasting Johnny. I told Zach very specifically, the YouTube title is going to be this, but the Spotify, Apple Podcast one has to be titled "Shitty PointsBet Trader Joins for an Interview," which is what it is titled to this day. But that episode, he's just a very well spoken, great guest with a lot of insider industry knowledge that I have to put it in that same stratosphere personally.
Put that number 5 for me. I'd like this episode more of if it wasn't Shipper. Let me tell you a quick Shipper story. Let me to add why my bias is here. So it's back when he was actually working at PB, and I was talking to Sport, who used to work. But this is after Sports better left. Left PointsBet, but Shipper was still there, and I asked Sprots, hey, I wanted to get down on something at PB. Could you tell one of the guys that you still know there in trading, like, it's just going to be Knish, just let him get that. Not like, was any inside scam. Just, I wanted to get down a little more than what he goes. He responds back. He goes, yeah, wait until like after 8 p.m. That's when Shipper gets off. And I was like, wait, Shipper's that, like, isn't it like he's your boy? He's there. Just tell. And no. He was such a company man that he wouldn't let me get down. We had to wait until the Shipper left, and the midnight crew, the poor Aussie who was working the late night crew, who probably could have been bought off for a bloomin' onion, had to come in and wait until then. So I had to stay up until midnight or whatever until Shipper left and was logged off. That the guy who was gonna. So Shipper was such a guy that even a Sprots referral couldn't get me a decent bet when he was working there. So yeah, I probably still have some scorn for Shipper in terms of where the points. Where do they find these kind of employees that it won't even let guy get a decent bet down? So yeah, that was my Shipper story that I'll never forget, and why I'll never let him in this tier.
So this is me separating the person from the episode itself, because I will say something. Shipper's attitude in that episode actually drove me crazy. He was so proud of what he had accomplished in terms of limiting other bettors. Like he wore it as it was just like this sense of pride for him. And even like when he mentioned, well, yeah, Rob, when you signed up at PointsBet, like we made sure we went in your account immediately, that really rubbed me the wrong way. Like I was like, I wasn't even given a chance. It's just like this is the decision I made in life to use my real name for all this stuff. But the contents of the episode itself, I think, are really good, despite the fact that I was a little bit rattled. But this is your time to shine, Knish. So that's it. We're moving on from like S tier.
Just one footnote, last footnote on that. The company's gone out of business. PointsBet USA doesn't exist anymore. So he can be as proud as he wants of that. They went under. Just a quick footnote there in terms of how they decided to do business. So yeah, but that's all I got for the as far as the what we would call the GOAT / Trent Hale tier.
I told Moretto that there was 0% chance Knish gave the Aussies any credit at all.
No, I was not putting them in this tier, even with a revolver to the back of my head.
Other episodes that I did consider for this tier were episode 61, which is Chris Bennett of Circa Sports. I thought that was a great episode, and like to this day, if people just want to learn how betting markets work, if you're new and you think that they're like sportsbooks out to get you and, you know, betting splits and whatever, just go watch the Chris Bennett episode because he basically just shits all over those notions. That was great. 74 was Ferris. I thought that was a super informative episode, just in the sense that it was unique, comes from a guy who moves bets and gets accounts, and like, you know, just don't get content like that elsewhere. So those were in the same tier for me. But we will move on to tier number 2, overrated episodes. Episodes that are generally considered to be really good or racked up a bunch of views and listens, but they really aren't that good, Knish.
Yeah, I was excited for this tier. And it's funny that the episode that I had right off ready to go was the one we talked, the first one you mentioned pre-show. And it's the Blue Horseshoe episode. It's the Fez episode. And you would say, and I know there are a lot of people that loved, this was what you would call a Johnny, like, you know, that guy who comes off the bench sometime and like, you're like, oh my God, he made 8 for 8, like made 8 threes in a row. And you're like, where did this come from? This was Johnny's like virtuoso episode, where he was like in the zone. Like it reached a level of like formative arts from Johnny that you just don't see. And like there's no other episode where he got, like, he was on a heater and it actually got legitimately like, and also I didn't really know this about, I've learned this more about Fez in terms of like actually done a small amount of content with him. He is such a, like, he's one of those guys who like won't shut up, and like him and Johnny going back and forth. So, but in terms of the actual, it's one of those, it's an entertainment episode, right? Like, it's not one of those, the GOAT tiers ones where it's like, you will be a legitimately better sports bettor listening to these, or you might find the information fascinating. No, this is one of those that like, you couldn't, it was like a train wreck, like a bus, you know, a car accident that like, you can't take your eyes off because of the, you know, it's like, it was like disaster porn for an episode, like where him and Johnny, it just got almost like awkward where they were going at it so much. But yeah, this one I put in also the opportunity to put the Blue Horseshoe in the overrated tier. Is an opportunity that I cannot well pass up. So yeah, I would put this in the GOAT tier for Johnny performances, but the overrated episode is a clear one for me.
This is probably the most divisive episode I think we've ever done. Some people would say this is the best episode ever, and some people just absolutely hated it. I'll just give my experience on recording this episode. This was number 88 with Steve Fezzik. I was so uncomfortable. I don't like confrontation. If I'm really adamant about something, I'll argue that point. I'll go back and forth in debate, spirited debate. But when I see two people going at it, and I'm kind of like in the middle of it, yeah. I just don't know what to do. So there's a large portion of that interview where I just feel incredibly awkward. I do think it was really compelling content, and you know, both I think like Fez to this day is like, well, Rob, like, why didn't you stand up for me a little bit more? It's not my responsibility to stand up for guests. They can plead their own case first and foremost. Johnny, on the other hand, is like, well, you know, like, why were you quiet for that period? It's like, I didn't really know what to do. It was like 20 to 30 minutes of just back and forth of like, well, why aren't you a billionaire yet? Well, I have my bills and mortgage to pay and my kids going to school. And it's like, well, your math's not making sense. And I didn't know what to do. I think from an entertainment point of view, it really depends on what you enjoy. For me, it's not the type of content that I would typically like to watch personally. But if you go through the comments of that episode, it's like lit. Like, people really enjoyed that episode in one way or another. And it's the perspectives are hilarious because it's like, great on Johnny for like putting Fez in his place. You know, no one has ever called Fez out like this. And then there's the complete opposite end of their perspective is like, who the hell is this Johnny guy? Like, do you know what Fez has accomplished in his life? This and that. So it's actually, it's nuts. It's actually the perfect representation of society nowadays, where like two opposite ends of the spectrum, nobody can meet in the middle. And I'm just kind of stuck there like, I don't know what to do. But interesting that you have
that's great. It was definitely, it was like a Trumper and like a Bernie Sanders supporter, like as if you're yelling at each other, where there was never going to be a resolution to the issue. Like, there was never going to be we meet in the middle and it goes where. So it was just constant fireworks. And you know what, it's funny you mentioned when Powers and Fez, we did that live stream for college basketball, and Powers and Fez were going at it, and I was like, I was in the same play. I was like, I don't know how to get a word. Fez talks such a high rate, and Johnny was so lit up that it was like, what am I supposed to say here? I don't know. Like, just let it go. So I think he did the best possible case there, and just let the fire burn.
Yeah, not a super informational episode, but I think some people find that incredibly entertaining.
It was like a Maury episode, or like a gambling Twitter Jerry Springer episode.
Rest in peace, Jerry Springer. But yes, absolutely. One of the other guests we've had on Circles Off, Professor Shine the Prof. I believe I don't want to misquote him, but I believe he's told me like he watches that episode like once a week, just because he's like this is the best thing ever. Like it's amazing. So to each their own. But Knish has
a niche of people that like have an undying hatred for Fez. I will say that. So I'm sure that subset of people really took a lot of pride and joy in that episode.
Yeah, I think that was like an episode. I'm speaking on his behalf, on Johnny's behalf here, right? But like, I don't want to. I got to use my terminology right here, but like, I think that episode really put him on the map, in the sense that like it made him very endearing to a lot of people on gambling Twitter. Like there's people that like I saw it at the last Bet Bash, or like, oh yeah, like that episode with Fezzik, amazing. Like honestly, I don't even know where that one stands. But you have it in the overrated list. It's fair. I mean, I if I was doing this myself, I might have it in the same area, overrated episode. But it's not my kind of content, personally. Similarly to like when, the watch along that you had with Powers and Fezzik it was amazing, but like a little bit of like, I was in some discomfort watching that at points. Like, where is this gonna go?
It was High Point versus Houston. I remember because I bet High Point and then down like 26-0 to start the game. Fez isn't even watching the game. Yeah. Like, the game wasn't even. He's just going off on a tangent. Him and Power start going at it, and I'm like, I thought this was the college basketball walk along where we were like, we were gonna yuck it up about this game, and like, neither of them were watching the basketball game. So I at one point I was like, oh well, I guess I'm just here for the ride.
The thing that made that one, going off on a tangent ourselves here, but the thing that made that watch along specifically uncomfortable for me is I couldn't tell if the feelings were real or if it was a shtick. Like, I'm like, I thought these guys get a lot, like, because they roast each other on Twitter. Yeah, they roast each other on Twitter all the time, and I'm like, is this a shtick? Is it real? I thought just over the years, like, okay, this is a shtick. And then they were like, I was like, oh, here we go. We were trying to get Fezzik on camera for that too, by the way. Producer Jason's like, we got to get Steve on camera, and he wouldn't come on. Anyways, that was another interesting.
No, I think he like couldn't figure it out. Like, legitimately, like he couldn't. I don't
know if I buy that or not. If you can figure it out, Knish, anyone can.
Yeah, well, that's what. If I couldn't figure it out, you'd believe it. But I'll give you a little behind the scenes there. I think my guy BP after the college football, the frustrating, end of college football season, had it up to here with the Blue Horseshoe, who had a very good college football season, and Feds is one who would 6-0 last 6 plays in the for a day. He's that kind of guy.
He posted the Stanley Cup ended. He had 2 plays that won, and he posted that he finished the season 11-1 on hockey plays. So yes.
Yeah, Feds is the type of guy who, when it's running good, everybody in the world's gonna know about it. And I think PP had just about had enough of that. He needed a little break from the Feds at that point.
Totally get it. Anything else that you think deserves to be in the overrated category?
You know what? You mentioned this, and it was one of those where he doesn't do a lot of media, and there was some intrigue having him on. But the guy, if you had a secret and you wanted to tell anybody that I have this edge and I need to tell one person who I know will never share it with anybody for the rest of eternity, it's Ed Gold. It's RAS Ed Golden. Where, listen, he's not the most. I've met Ed. I actually he helped me all in terms of getting a start into making some connections. I like him as a person, but in terms of information sharing, and this is, I think, a big part of the reason why he's done almost no media over the last 20 years and basically has hired people to do a lot of the public stuff for RAS, is it kills him to give away anything that could even. He told a story one, and if I remember, where he said something on years ago, and he still remembers this, over a decade ago, that somebody then was able to utilize and leverage against him in some fashion. And so that's one where you're not going to get it out of Ed. You can squeeze that. There's not going to get a blood out of that stone, or whatever the saying is. And it's just one again, he doesn't do, so there's some uniqueness there in terms of he doesn't, but that's when I put in the overrated category, just because you're not going to get anything good out of him ever. He's not going to give you nothing. And that's just the way he's done business. And for all, he's very, I could say he ran RAS like the CIA for a while. He wasn't going to give you an edge at all. And so that kind of plays into it for me.
Yeah. I would have to agree with you on that. I know Ed personally as well. This was episode 100. We wanted to have a bigger name guest on that doesn't do a lot of media. This, I believe, was the first time that he did a interview on camera, if I recall correctly. I could be wrong about that, but this was episode 100. I just found that in the first 20 to 30 minutes of the interview, I found it was really hard to get him to open up. And I think as time went on, he got more comfortable and was a little bit more willing to talk. I don't know if it was a nerves thing, because for an interview to work, the interviewer's got to do their jobs. The guest has to, I don't want to say do their job, but be interesting in some capacity, respond truthfully, honestly. I got a lot of short form answers at the beginning. I was like, how's this going to go? I think the latter half of that interview was actually really good, honestly. But I think it took a little bit of time to get into that.
Yeah, totally. It was a slow, and I think just that's who Ed is. He doesn't want, you have to almost spend 30 minutes to get anything out of him, just to even get, that's his nature. That's kind of how he's kind of survived in the business per se of, having Ed. I tell you what, the man will never, it's funny nowadays, you see people like that, start up, anything now, people will give away edges and just on Twitter, younger people that are getting into the business for over anything. It probably, that's probably why Ed is, still tilted over on the message boards, no matter what, just because I'm sure it kills him to see some of that, because that is not how he's wired at all.
No, I love Ed, honestly. I think he's a great guy.
I agree.
Met him a few times in person. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was just nerves. I was trying to come up with stuff that would be, we could turn into larger conversations, and it never really materialized in the early going there. By the way, I do want to point out, I appreciate every guest that comes on here. This is not I'm trying to roast every single guest. This is not what it's intended to be. A lot of this is on my end as well. Personally, one interview people mentioned to me all the time was 129 Giants Badgers, which was, I think maybe we had him on before anyone else did, or around that other time he was doing other podcasts. But that interview was done, and I honestly thought I did a terrible job with that interview. Me personally, I was just like, yeah, probably could have attacked that in a different way. And like that week, people were going nuts. They're like, oh, this is amazing, and this and that. I had people reach out to me on the side, like, amazing interview with Giants Badgers. So, I mean, sometimes the perspective of myself, like being in the chair, going through it, might be different than the way other people would react to the interview. But that was one that stood out to me of a recent one where people were like, oh, this is like absurdly good. I'm like, really? Because like, I don't know. I struggled through that to like come up with a good line of questioning. It didn't feel conversational to me. I don't know. It's very hit or miss, I guess, for different people.
Yeah, I think he kind of like almost replicates a younger guy, kind of people that are, getting into the space, some of the ways he was able to do it. But as kind of a direct competitor, I'm fine with calling that overrated. for my personal interest, yeah, overrated. Don't go back and listen to that. Listen to the Joey K episodes instead. One that we talked to, and I gotta highlight here, and it's funny because I actually get down for this guy a little bit these days, and it's the gambling Frank Costanza, who went on a absolute 6-month Twitter heater of like new account, flaming everybody. People are loving it. Finally get him on and just a dud of an interview. And I can't wait till he hears me say this. Because I tell you, like, and I say, not only I feel like he lost the steam with that episode, that the Twitter account hasn't been the same. It was a content disaster for Frank. And I know that's not what he's trying to do for a living, but I tell you what, if he was ever, it was a blow up content, because I would say his Twitter hasn't been the same, the flame hasn't been the same, and poor Frank, that was not a good one, and I don't think he can recover from it.
I do appreciate Gambling Frank Costanza coming on the program. The one thing that I didn't like is that he's very adversarial and will take shots at me, take shots at Johnny, take shots at a lot of people. Like you said, like that 6-month run where he's just flaming everyone all the time. And then did not do the interview with video on. So we did the entire interview where he was audio only, and me and Johnny did not see him for the interview either. But at the end, little secret from behind the scenes, Johnny said off air, like, hey, what the hell, man? Like, you're trolling us all the time, and you don't even show your face on the thing. And he actually did turn on his camera. I know what he looks like now. We actually had a conversation off air. Wish we had that conversation beforehand. I don't know if he would have agreed to do the video. I just don't like that personally. I think that if you're adversarial, you want to be a troll. I know part of the reason people do it on Twitter is that they don't have to show their face, and they can remain anonymous and whatever. I find something wrong with that. Like, I think if you're gonna be that person, like Knish, for example, that's gonna roast other people, you might as well put your real face behind it and own up to it and stand up. So that was my opinion on that.
To me, you gotta, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. To me, like, listen, some people, and we'll do, at the last episode we did where, listen, I some people wanted to dish it back. Our guy Pitsky wasn't too, positivo about my words that I had for him there. And him and the Godfather, who I know, who apparently you go to dinner with and play golf with 3 times a week now. You and Moretto, instead of we're working with me, are having yucking up eating poutine or whatever it is you have over there with those guys. But yeah, I mean, to me, like, I agree. If you're gonna dish it, you got to be willing to kind of get in the ring and take it a little bit.
Yep, I'm with you. We clear to move on from overrated episodes.
Yep. Let's keep it going.
Okay. Underrated episodes, exact opposite here. Episodes that are generally considered to be forgettable or didn't rack up that many views or listens, and they're actually really good episodes. The floor is yours, Knish.
So this is going to be a little bit, and this is one of the most recent. And for me, I don't know why this is, but I find the world of horse racing kind of fascinating because it's something I never really got involved in. I've never really had success in. There's been a few stories of like the most successful sports bettors ever were in some fashion involved in like massive horse racing syndicates, and it was 153 Denny Caps, which I found very enjoyable. I found, and again, I think some of the underrated factor is just horse racing is dying, like in this country, and I think around the world. It's not what it used to be. But there's still something in me that loves kind of that, his name, he was at Bet Bash one time, Zelko, his name, I forget his
Zelko.
Yeah, just incredible, big syndicate guy. And so like Denny being able to explain a little bit how the syndicates work, how the rebate scam, kind of like the mass rebate thing, where it was like, if you did it right, you literally like didn't even have to win and you could be making money. There's also a famous like old horse racing modeling story that I would have to pull up as one of the best stories that I ever. So that to me, I think he did it a little better to me than the Vegas Horse Pools episode, where I thought the Denny Caps really was able to get into it industry wise, and one that maybe just because people aren't into horse racing as much anymore, but I still have that kind of that initial interest. I found it pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I actually love that conversation. I like to bet on horse racing, but I don't know much about the market, the ins and outs, how it works. I've tried to model horse racing before with no success. So I actually love that conversation with Dennis Montoro. That's episode 153. Episode 150 was Vegas Horse Pools. Very different because he just identified an edge which he can exploit for a long period of time and did it. I loved that episode. That was one of my favorite episodes to ever record because he's such a good storyteller, Scott. But different type of episode, right? Like that's not one where you're going to watch it and you're going to learn a ton about horse racing or whatever. It was just like kind of his story, which I really, really think is interesting. So that to me, I almost would also put that in the underrated category, although it did actually do fairly well for us, I would say. So it's hard to, again, underrated. It's got to be an episode that people don't ever really talk about. So I don't know about that. But yeah, I like that Denny Caps one quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's just one that that's got to be in there as far as, again, maybe it's recent, so it probably did better than it would, if you did it 2 years ago, it would have been, then we really could have called it underrated and dig back. But I think that's one that deserves some high marks for sure.
Anything else that stands out to you in the underrated category?
You know what? I got, and this is a massive oversight by me. We got to pivot back for 1 second to overrated. And it was this, okay, give me, and I know it was the Jeff Benson, JJ Gruden 79. I wanted so much more. I wanted like Johnny and Fez, and I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And that's the, like, that is one where, and I left that because I'm going through the scrolling now, and I had that marked. I wanted a little more. And again, I don't think it's either one's fault. It's just, I wanted theatrics. I wanted chaos. I wanted, hatred. And I didn't get it. I got a little bit too much agreeance. I wanted, I wanted Maury, and I got, I can't think of any other date.
Yeah, just you got the softcore porn version of Maury, basically.
Yeah.
You wanted some XXX, and you got the stuff that's on TV at like 12:30 p.m.
Yeah.
One of those.
I think that episode
underrated though. Underrated. Let's shift back.
Well, wait a second here. Producer Zach wants to talk about that episode. Like, you don't get to pivot back to whenever you want. You're the guest here, not the host here, Knish.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that for that episode, very quickly what happened was that Benson identified that no matter what he was going to say, JJ was just not going to, like...
Yeah.
I don't want to say grasp, but like absorb maybe is the better word.
No, you can say grasp. Grasp is the right word.
Yeah, grasping it. And then JJ also kind of very quickly was like, I don't care how much you're going to bring to the table knowledge-wise. Like, I really don't give a fuck. I just want to bet.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, the episode's over. Like, that's it. That's all we got for you.
Right. Yeah, we got an hour to fill. Okay.
It was tough. In principle, that episode in my head was going to work a lot better than it did. I don't have any ill will towards JJ Gruden, but like probably about 15 to 20 minutes in, I would say that he was completely defeated, for one. He could not make a viable argument against Benson other than that, like, I just want to bet.
Yeah.
Like, and it was tough. It was tough. Like, I was hoping he would have some more rational arguments for, his style, and he just didn't. So it makes it really tough when one person can really argue well, like Jeff can, and the other is just like, it was tough one. But we can now pivot back towards the underrated.
Cue me up, Zach. We're pivoting back. Listen, another one, and I don't even know if we can. Maybe they just didn't do it. Like, I don't know. Maybe the numbers did better. I mean, I've got to give. He's done two. I think 152 and then 48. How do I even say
Telemachus.
Oh boy, Joey K wasn't going to nail that one. Wasn't going to land that plane. Telemetry, Telemachus. I found both of his, and I know he working for Roof and stuff is, so it's hard to. I'm gonna have to give Roof some credit here. I found both of his episodes very intriguing, and I don't even know if they should go in underrated. But I didn't have them in GOAT tier, but I thought they're incredibly informational. I know some smart people that really, really enjoyed his 152. It got a great Hagren BPR rating, and he's.
Well, we're not optimizing for Hagren BPR. No offense, Hagren's a very smart guy, like supremely intelligent. But like, if every episode we do gets like a 9 Hagren BPR rating, then like we're gonna fail as a podcast. That's like the reality of the situation, right?
Right. So it definitely a little bit more in terms of in depth. But I found his pretty fascinating, in both ones that I enjoyed quite a bit. And it's funny because if I try and, a lot of them weren't entertainment, but I know when we do episodes together, we kind of do some more entertainment based, yank it up a little bit. It's just, I was kind of trying to find one. It's like, what guest do I find that maybe if you were just looking for some more, surface level stuff in entertainment, would be underrated. But I didn't have one that I thought fit that bill, unless you want to go to 142.
Yeah, I got some options. So the Telemachus stuff, I would actually suggest people watch both of those interviews. They're highly informative. The first one was I'm looking for the date here of the first time we had him on, but March of 2022. This was prior to him joining Rufus's betting group. He was honestly just tracking stuff on BetStamp. That's the reason we actually wanted to have him on. Was like, this guy is winning on BetStamp. Let's go through his process. And then, we come full circle a couple years later, and he's working for a bigger group. So they're very different. It's like, I think it's a great to call out both of those.
Yeah.
For me,
if I would have listened to the earlier one more timely, probably could have been, making me rich instead of Rufus. So that's a big fail on my end.
I mean, we interviewed the guy and we thought he was brilliant, and he carved up. He's ended up in a very good spot. I'm happy for him. I wish him all the best. Very, very informative interviews. The 7th guest we ever had on was episode 19. It was audio only. It was Eddie Walls. I loved doing that interview. Eddie is very interesting character. He talked through his process for getting ready for college football season, how he bets college football, talked about the emotions of sports betting. No one's ever going to remember that. Like that's 3 years ago now, and it was audio only. Very, very limited listenership, but I thought that was solid. A few others that stand out to me, you're going to hate this.
I hate that one because Eddie and I are like oil and water. We just don't see, like, whenever I remember he would type stuff in the, like, I think he's a good person at heart, who kind of drives me insane. It's funny. Him and Rufus are back to back, the episodes 19 and 20, and they fall in the same category of like, I think they're good, very smart, smart, good people. They kind of make me want to jump off a bridge listening to them or reading what they're reading anything that they type. So that again, it's just everybody's got their own flavor.
Sure.
And so they just that's why I didn't have either of those in that category. Not going to be in the worst ever, because I do think there's some intriguing content there. But sometimes you want to bash my head into a wall listening to Eddie or Roof.
Okay, you're entitled to your
bash
opinion.
My head into a wall listening to Eddie was a great. I didn't give that Eddie. That needed more. Zach, let me cut that out and let me say it again, so it looks more like a great segue there.
Okay, go for it.
I want to bash my head in listening to bash my. I screwed it up again. Yeah, leave it in, Zach. Now just leave it all in so people know I'm not infallible.
All right, there you go. We'll leave this all in. This is all staying in. Everything. Episode 83, December of 2022. Pisky Positivo.
Wait. I didn't know we were already on worst of all time.
No, we're not. We are definitely not. We are in the underrated category. I love that. I love that episode. It actually started a friendship with Pisky, who I think is very misunderstood, but whatever. It's my own personal opinion. But that episode itself, as a standalone episode, I thought was great. It was like a story of a guy who amassed a bunch of wealth by finding an edge and exploiting it to the max. I thought that was a really good episode at the time. I still do. That's going to be my underrated. The most underrated episode we've ever done, in my opinion.
I'm going to pivot just real quick. Like, I tend to agree. And like, if you would ask me my opinion, like, if I never saw him tweet, I had just listened to that episode, I'd be like, oh yeah, Pisky legit. Like, if he just stopped tweeting, I'd be all in on Pisky. Maybe change his name too. Like, just like I can't. Maybe it's the toxic positivity culture we live in. But I agree. I do think that was a good episode. And yeah, until he got more active on Twitter, I was a Pisky guy.
I mean, people don't like to see other people happy. And he's always happy. So I get where you're coming from, Knish. I mean, I get where you're coming from.
That's probably why we've amassed such big followings on Twitter. It's just people like to see misery. So that's really that's made it up.
Episode number 110, Jeff Ma, in my opinion, is our most underrated episode of all time.
You're going from Eddie Walls and Roof, and now you're going to feed me. I mean, you're just feeding me softballs here.
And I thought, so we actually had a fire alarm going off over the course of the day when we recorded that. So we had to record it in like 3 different parts, call him back and cut it off. It might have felt a little bit of disjointed at the time. I had to watch it back when we put it live to make sure it all came together nicely. Whatever you think of Jeff Ma, who is the co-host of Bet the Process with Rufus Peabody, a lot of people like him. A lot of people don't like him. I think he's a very polarizing individual. I thought that was an extremely compelling conversation with Jeff. Part of it, I guess, is because I've been on with him and Rufus so many times. I don't know much about Jeff. So being on the other side of that, I thought that was really fun to do. I guess just based off of your reaction, you're not a Jeff Ma guy.
It's funny because I literally would put Jeff in the same category as the Rufus and Eddie of like, but even more like, we're like, I could go to dinner with Jeff because I agree. I think he does have some like fascinating like backstory and some work history in that. This is where Joey K cannot take his bias out of it. There was a Bet the Process that you were on where you, and I hate to give you the salt, but you were cooking for like the first 20 minutes. And I got to go back and see where like you were just on a heater. And I remember like, I was so into what you were saying and like entry, and Jeff wouldn't stop interrupting you. And I remember tweeting it out in all caps. I was so like, I wanted to reach through the podcast and strangle him and say, Jeff, shut the hell up and let Rob talk. So I agree. Jeff, much better podcast guest than podcast host. So yeah, I agree. Of the episodes you've listed as underrated. I agree. I think that deserves. He can be a very very interesting conversation, very interesting person, a better person to interview than host for sure.
And then, so yeah, a little bit of previous history, I would say, between you two that might have, impact your opinion on that. But fair enough. I know exactly which podcast you're talking about, by the way.
I know. Yeah, I got to go. Also, the best bet the process of all time no longer exists. It was the episode that Jeff was talking about, like bringing over atmosphere models in Vegas to like a great like my favorite bet the process ever, and it had to get deleted because when he was working at Microsoft, someone like wrote a hit piece on him that was totally not true. But
not true.
Yeah.
Anyways, that sucks, but we're not here to talk about the bet the process episodes. Let's keep up here with what we're doing.
Let's keep the focus, Zach.
Last couple, I'll give in the under. I'm not going to go through our entire like history and give. I thought that this 2-episode stretch was so good. I don't know. You're nodding, Zach.
I know where you're going to go because I have them down too, and they're back to back.
No. Okay, yeah. Why don't you go first?
Okay, episode 126.
Wow, 126, 127.
Yeah.
That's the exact two I was going with.
Yeah.
126 is Dr. Eric Eager, who is now the VP of Football Analytics for the Carolina Panthers. If you cannot watch that interview and come away as a way more informed football bettor, you're beyond help at this point. There are so many good tidbits in that interview. Eric is so good at articulating advanced football concepts to regulars. That was amazing. 127, Antonino DeRosa, who started as a Magic the Gathering tournament player and ended up as a pro sports bettor. Amazing story. Lots of great tidbits in there as well. That might be my favorite back-to-back in history. Didn't rack up a ton of views or listens for either of those, but I would, like, leading into football season, listen to that Eric Eager interview without a doubt. Go ahead.
I agree. Like, and I didn't have it because he worked for the network for so long that I didn't want to sound like we were
feels like a cop out, right? Like, yeah. It's like my favorite episodes are,
he works for the Hammer. Totally. But I agree. I thoroughly enjoy listening to Eric break down NFL football in a lot of facets, whether it be draft, whether it be play design. Like, he is great. He's got some Trent Hale in him.
Yeah,
of being able to break down those complicated concepts and talk about them. And he's a great. So I hope. I hope. I mean, he's taken quite of a career risk here. Going. I don't know if the
expectations
want to turn around, but
expectations couldn't be lower. Expectations could not be lower in Carolina right
Hopefully
now.
He's got a set of brass balls he can put on his desk for I don't know if Tepper's listening to the analytics guy, number one, but I wish him the best. I'm hyped for him. And I agree because he can. I could see him in a room with the GM and stuff, breaking it down like legitimately, so they can understand it. And so that's why I could see him having success. He's not some nerd or he's quoting like a calculus formula talking about why we should draft this guy. He can relate it to normal people.
One of my favorite things, and this is skirting away from the episode, I love Eric Eager. I think he's brilliant, amazing person. Like, he lives in he must have just moved to Carolina now, moved the family. So we're not close, but like if I grew up with Eric, we would be best friends. But the one thing that always fascinated me about Eric Eager is he absolutely loves Jeff Feinberg. Jeff Feinberg, another one of our Ford Eric Eager would take a bullet for Jeff Feinberg without even thinking about it. He would just message me all the time. He's like, whenever Jeff is on, like, I want to be on at the same time. Like, he's the most entertaining, and I could not grasp it because, like, Jeff is like the polar opposite of Eric. Like, Eric's like the analytical guy, extremely well informed. Jeff is like a little bit, he's definitely not analytical. He's a little bit more rash in his decision making.
Yeah.
Both great dudes.
Hit a ball and see how I'm feeling and then pick that pick and be able to talk about it.
Exactly. So anyways, just wanted to share that story. Let's keep it moving here.
I got one more to throw in.
Go for it.
If you guys
in
want.
an underrated capacity?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be for you guys, which is fair, and maybe not as much for the other people who are like part of the higher level of gambling Twitter, which I would consider you guys in. But like one that was very fascinating for me, or just, at least from an entertainment standpoint, was Call Cuss Service, episode 114.
Oh yeah.
I think it's like probably not underrated to the people who know him, but I think maybe to people entering the gambling space or trying to learn more about it and just don't understand like what this world is. That one was one that I took away from being like, wow, that was pretty cool to just hear some of that stuff, the stories, him meeting people, how he's gone through it, building his career, building the network, that kind of stuff. I think that was is just a very entertaining episode.
Yeah, episode 114, Call Customer Service. Juan Martinez, as he's referred to in the space. I actually went out to see him about 3 weeks ago. This is where,
really?
Yeah, this is where
You
it's
guys play
hard.
golf?
We played golf. He took me out to his club just north of Chicago. It was an absolute banger of a day. I mean, true story. I'm actually like, I don't mind admitting this. I don't play with caddies when I play. We played with caddies on the course. I got a female caddy, which is, by the way, like no problem with that or whatever. I felt so much like immense pressure on every shot because it was a female caddy, and like I couldn't play golf that day. Like I was trying to swing out of my shoes on every shot to be like a man. You know what I'm saying? It was the next day I got like this 75-year-old man as the caddy. I was like, thank God, like this guy knows I'm shit. I know I'm shit. Like I can deal with that. The first drive with this caddy, I piped the drive, like one of the best drives I ever hit in my life, right down the fairway. And like this girl thought, she's like, yeah, here we go. Like I got like a good golfer today. I'm standing over in the fairway. I'm like, listen, lady, like what you saw there is not my game. Like we're going to be, and then I just like chunked the next shot. It was like so much pressure, completely off topic here, but he's a great guy. It's hard to separate the person from the episode, right?
Yeah.
And I have
for
a
me
challenge
totally,
there.
and that's why I didn't have, like, I would not be where I'm at in the industry without a lot of his working with him and his guidance and partnering up with him in a lot of ways. So, but I agree. That's why it's like that would never be underrated for me, just because I agree. It's very hard to separate that relationship. And so, and again, I put bias in all my opinions here. So, like that would be kind of why I just didn't want to include it as well.
I just thought it should get some recognition.
Yeah,
sure.
He has a very good story as well. For what he does specifically, and like his type of betting, I would say probably best in North America at running the specific props market. And like he's just, I've worked with him before, incredibly thorough, really good dude, really good conversation. I did enjoy that one quite a bit. We're going to keep it moving here. Before we do, if you're still with us, you're probably enjoying the episode, or else why the hell would you still be with us? Smash that like button down below. If you're not subbed here on Circles Off yet. Again, we still get like 60% of people who watch on a weekly basis who are not subbed to the channel. A lot of you are returning viewers. Doesn't do anything. Like, it doesn't hurt you at all. Click that sub button. If you do want to get notified going forwards of future episodes, make sure you turn on notifications as well. All right, category number 4, tier number 4, the What the Fuck Were You Thinking tier. Worst episodes of all time.
Oh, baby. I've been licking my chops ready for it. Now this is called the we should name it the ceremonial Joey K tier of worst. Not in terms of worst up, just in terms of like being able to call out worst episodes.
I don't know why we would name anything after you. I don't care if it's not going to happen, bud.
We're going to be diametrically opposed on this one. And I love it, and it's because I'm anti everything this person. It's 145. It's Alan Boston.
Wow.
I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear anything he has to say. I don't think he's still got an edge in the game. I don't find the story that fascinating anymore. I don't want to hear that he worked for Billy Walters 30 years ago. I don't want to hear that, the people are dropping dead all over the world because of the vaccine. I'm just out. You want hashtag, you want to call me Joey Lib for that. He's too lunatic fringe for me. And I just don't want, to get, he's lost. There's people that I can disagree with that in the space that I can still find interesting and want to hear from. I don't want to hear what he has to say anymore. I've had my lifetime fill of Alan Boston.
Okay, fair enough. You're entitled to your opinion. My opinion of that is that I share a lot of probably the same views on life that you do. I would say myself and Alan Boston, there's not a lot of overlap on the Venn diagram in terms of our beliefs. But with that said, I love doing that interview with them. I really did. And I watched it back and I was like, this was unreal content. And people don't know this. We did have to cut some stuff from that interview because it might have violated some YouTube policies or some stuff. Like, I didn't want to get a strike on. Like, I wish we could air that in full. We couldn't on the YouTube platform because we're at risk of some stuff. But it was, in my opinion, I don't share the same opinion as you. But we brought you on for a reason, Knish. You're entitled to it. I just don't think this is deserving of the what the fuck were you thinking category.
You know what? Your average listener probably can listen to that and find some entertainment of it. I've just, especially in some of the recent years, like the Alan Boston body of work no longer, I find I'll say even somewhat like there's a credibility that I find some skepticism with that I would say where there's some people that I may not love hearing from Porter or find him a great listen, but that doesn't mean that I know his capability and respect what he, his ability to earn and find that in the space. Whereas to me, Boston's a cartoon at this point.
Okay. That's your opinion. You're entitled to it. What else do we got in the, we'll call it the worst of all time list right now?
You know what? And this isn't so much as what I came in with the expectation, and maybe he's just lost his fastball because he's been doing it for so long. It's 131. It's Sizzle. It's one that the guy's been running the same bit. It's like when I called out whatever his name was for the Bose thing, like for doing it for so it's been like 15 years, man. And it's just, I didn't go into it with bias of expectations either, but I just found like it's been played. It's the same.
You're talking about the Clay Travis, Jason McIntyre.
Yes. Like that's still like, how many times can you go to that well over the course of two decades where, and I think even if you're a newer those people have already like you don't need to call out Jason McIntyre in 2024 or Clay Travis. Like they've already kind of made themselves into ridiculous characters. So that's one I just didn't take anything from it. I kind of knew what it was going to be going into it. I didn't find it much of a one that I would, listen to again per se.
Okay. That's an interesting choice. So, Sizzle as a person, I like him quite a bit because we have a lot of overlap in the music that we listen to. Like I'm wearing a Gojira t-shirt today. Like we love Metallica. We share like guitar videos with each other all the time. So there's that. I had no idea until the day of that interview that he's actually not a sharp bettor. And he mentioned that to us off air. I figured this guy is ingrained in Seville, Contrarianville, like this group of sharp bettors on Twitter, yet he's not. That was a little bit weird. The reason that I wouldn't put this in like the lowest tier episodes is there was a discussion for the last 20 to 30 minutes about potential litigation against touts and whether or not you would be able to sue a tout in a court of law. Sizzle's a lawyer by trade. I love that conversation. I thought, I don't know how we got there. I honestly have no idea how we got there. Cannot recall. But that point of the conversation really saved a lot of that interview for me. But I completely understand your stance on that one. Episode 131, Sizzle, also known as Sizzling Sports. Yeah, okay, fair enough. That's it.
You want me? No, you want me to keep going, or do you?
You can roast as many episodes as you want. Are
you able to unbiasedly say ones that you would say maybe that you didn't feel went well?
Oh yeah. I mean, listen, like I'm here to be like honest and transparent. Like that's the point of doing this episode. Sometimes it's the guest, like to be with full transparency. Like, listen, anyone who's ever done interviews before, sometimes you just get a guest that like they're not very talkative. It's really hard. That just happens. So sometimes it's the guest. Sometimes I'd look at Johnny afterwards and I'd be like, fuck, we really should have went harder on this and like approached in this direction or whatever. You live and you learn. But there's I'm surprised you didn't bring up. Candidly, I'm surprised you didn't bring up the Sharky Waters Nation episode.
That was going to be on the list. Yeah, that was coming.
So that was episode 123. We obviously tried to do something very different there because it went Shipper, Barry Horse, two extremely sharp guys, Sharky Waters Nation, content creator, very likely not a winning bettor. We're trying to get a different perspective. Like we do the same, we do a lot of similar stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just about 15, 20 minutes into that one, I was like, I don't really know where we're going to be able to go with this conversation. I just didn't really know. And obviously it doesn't fit in. I don't really regret doing it though, because it did open us up to a new audience of people that we never would get.
Yeah, if I'm recalling, I think I checked out of that one early. So that's probably why it wasn't near the top tier of my worst of all time list, because I think I just gave that one the old stop button, because I think I knew very early on, as you're saying, it was trending in a bad direction.
Yeah, like there's episode number 12, the third guest episode ever, was Harut Masoyan, works with Armenian bettor out in Vegas, pretty heavy-hitting group. Harut, I've met in person prior to this. Love the guy. Like, no issues. But, I go back and I listen to that. I'm like, yeah, this was a horrible interview on our, like, we basically, no offense to Harut, but like he promoted his group and tried to get accounts for like half an hour of that interview. Not great at the end of the day, right? And probably should have like changed that up a little bit. If I had a redo at that, I would completely change that up. What else was like? They still?
Like, they've been very, very quiet. Right? Are they still doing this?
I mean, I don't work with them directly, but I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I would be.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
I had just heard something recently that they were kind of out of the game, not in a bad way, just that they're. But I don't know. I hadn't heard from kind of either of them in quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did fairly well with NFTs as well, betting. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you one way or another. That one was rough. Episode 63 was with Derek Stevens, and like we wanted at that time. And I still am a big proponent of Circa. I love like the way that they do business and that they cater to all bettors. We had Chris Bennett on a couple episodes prior, which was an amazing interview. And we tried to have Derek Stevens on because they were just like launching this, the Survivor football contest. And like, it was like a huge thing at that time. The prize pools that they were giving away. But it just ended up turning into like an infomercial is what it did. Right. And it was hard to get out of that. So I didn't like that interview. I'd love a do-over of that one. I mean, just...
Yeah, because he's kind of a rags to... Like, he's kind of got a fascinating backstory that could have gotten more, like more into, of kind of how you even go about, like, being not in the casino business to, like, owning multiple casinos.
We tried to go down that path a little bit, but we just didn't get anywhere. So, like, it just didn't work out. Episode 104 was Kevin Davis. You want to talk about the worst timed episode of all time. Kevin Davis was doing a secondary podcast here on the Circles Off channel called 90 Degrees. I've met Kevin Davis many times. He was at my table for a Bookie Better breakfast at the second Bet Bash. He's the most interesting character ever, but we bring him on because we want to promo his 90 Degrees show, and like a week later he resigns from the Hammer because he got a job that's like a conflict of interest. So like useless episode basically at the end of the day. 104 Kevin Davis. Love the guy, but like you're not at, nothing there. Those are the ones that mainly stand out to me as very regrettable, I would say.
Yeah, and you know what? I was just kind of trying to find, I don't have another one that I thought was like, oh my God, how can which is a testament to the podcast of like, I don't think there's a lot of just absolute bombs per se in the history. And that's, say for 160 episodes with ones with a lot of guests, there weren't many where it's like, I just can't listen to this. So Sharky Waters was.
I know what those ones are, right? Like 47 was Ed Fang. We brought him on to do
oh my God, I forgot. I had it on. That's another ball drop by me. I probably should make lists so I don't forget these things.
Yeah.
Instead, like actually write them down or put them in the spreadsheet, because I just like Benson and Gruden with the regrettable. Ed Fang is totally on the. Yeah, Ed Fang used to be part of the, like, I listen to a weekly radio segment. It's called the MGO blog. It's on around here. It's about Michigan sports, Michigan football usually.
Yeah.
He used to be on it, and it's called a round table. It's like the guy who runs all these like guys who are super into Michigan football. He was on it and would give like his like analytics, and it would make me want to jump off a bridge. And then hearing him on the podcast, he actually asked me to do his pod once, and I just
you shouldn't do that. Ed Fang is like the nicest guy.
You've said this to me, that he is like genuinely one of the nicest people you've ever met. I
actually, like, honestly, be honest, like, I don't know why he's disliked. I personally do, other than like, okay, he has like a service or whatever, and that generally there's going to be like this corner of gambling Twitter that you have a service, like you're toast. I don't know how it does or whatever, but like he is the nicest human. Like, it is not an exaggeration. Like Mount Rushmore of nice people I've ever met in my life. And the thing with the March Madness bracketology stuff, I know that can get really annoying to the sophisticated sharp bettors. Like me and you, Knish, and probably like 40% of the following of this podcast, we all know how to fill out a bracket and understand. But there is a subsection of gamblers that have no friggin' clue how to do anything related to game theory. And I think Ed is pretty good at explaining that. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. People don't like that episode. It got like a lot of thumbs down on YouTube and stuff like that or whatever. But like, I don't. I think that was just like
boring. He's boring to listen to. And I don't think he has a lot of like, I know he's got he doesn't have that eager Trent Hale skill of like kind of making it very interesting. And I don't think he's got a lot of like genuine betting experience.
Yeah. So more of an analytics versus
right. It's kind of like that that hat trick. That's a hockey term of nothingness there, of like doesn't really bet, doesn't really do a great job dumbing down the analytic stuff. Not very entertaining. 3 strikes, you're out.
Okay. You're entitled to your opinion. I don't necessarily echo it, but that was, one of them. Okay, are we good with the WTF category here? Have we sealed the deal? I think
that's it. Yeah, I wish I had another, spicy one or two, but I don't have another one that I'd like to flame.
That's good, because we've done a lot of episodes. We've done 82 guest episodes. So the fact that you couldn't pinpoint like a dozen that you wanted to destroy, I'm actually really happy about the way that this went. I don't appreciate, I don't appreciate the harsh words about Ed, but for the most part, this went better than expected.
One more, and I like the guy, so I wasn't gonna. 147 with Corby.
Yeah.
I can't. I couldn't do it. Like I listen. And I like that's the problem. Same where like Ed. Like I've done a little bit, and I like Corby. I don't want to hear. I can't. I don't want to hear him. Like I talk about. So that was one for me that I wouldn't. But it wouldn't. It's not like disaster. Like, but one that I wasn't super into.
Yeah, we have. It's really interesting in running content because we have a very diverse set of listeners and watchers, right? Like from the sharp, like Hagrin watches and listens every week. Like one of the sharpest, like brilliant minds to people who have like just started betting 2 weeks ago and they want to. So like it.
Are you getting him on by? See, if you asked him to do an episode,
I have not asked Hagrin to do an episode, but I am very confident if I had to set odds on the response. We're looking at like minus 100,000. No.
Because his he did one pod with he goes by Phil Shepard on Twitter. That's not his name, but who did like that, and it was one of the most fascinating. Listen, it was very. I would compare it to the AD episode you did, the abnormally dissed episode. It was that type of where like you listen and your mind's just absolutely blown. So I think he'd be an interesting, but yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, it's crazy because you look at the way that he reviews podcasts on the Hagrin BPR account, whatever. Like just the thoroughness in which he reviews.
I was going to say he's like a computer. He's like a machine, like a human, like robot.
Yeah, I mean, he might not even be a real person. He could just be artificial intelligence. As we know it, it might not.
Some
he might
of the
not
stuff
even be
he did to like that. He was as mentioned before of like with making money where it was like my brain like I can't like the fact that there's people this smart out there is horrifying to me.
Yeah, it's actually really tough to interview when the person is that much smarter than you.
Yes,
like I listen. I'm not like I consider myself a pretty intelligent person. I want to be arrogant, but like. I was advanced grades in school when I was younger. I'm pretty smart. I grasp most concepts. Like I was trying to follow this guy for some crypto stuff for a couple years, and like I'm lost, dude. There's no I can't. He's on another planet with some of this stuff. So
that's why Knish is second chair to Powers on Hit the Books.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's also like why I love doing these episodes with Knish because we get to dumb it down a little bit for the audience.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You can be more of the, my fourth grade reading level kind of is an everyman, type of content.
We're moving on to the last category. And as we do, by the way, episode 155, Alex Bartlett breathes a sigh of relief to not be on the What the Fuck Were You Thinking episodes.
I feel like it was too cliche to put Barney on there, but I did, and you know what, he had a nice moment there because I do remember reaching out to him for the first time and him crushing win the first season of the XFL and moving some XFL for him, and he did well. So that was a nice touch, and I appreciate, and I do like the guy, so I didn't want to, I've already done my Barty Twitter, so I didn't want to double down on him.
There you go. Nice. You do actually have a heart, Knish, despite what the people say.
I mean, I do like the guy, but I mean, listen, was that a favorite for me? No, but listen, I think some people enjoyed it, and he's he's a smart guy.
All right, tier 5. I would like this episode more if the guest wasn't a dork. Decent episode, but Knish doesn't
We're
like
calling
this
the shit like the Trent Hale episode. I'm calling this the shipper tier.
Okay. Is that it? Is there anyone else that you would like more if you did like? Not that the guest is necessarily a dork. This is badly named, but maybe you don't get along with the guest. You don't like them personality wise, but they you'd have to admit that they gave a better interview than you expected.
28 plus EV. Sometimes he can be one that kind of. Sometimes it's like, what is this guy talking about? It's a little, but I think he does do a decent interview. And he's done some stuff for the Hammer, and like he can, if you get him in the right setting, I think he can be interesting to talk about. 53 is a great one. The Hitman. If it was anybody but the Hitman, I'd probably enjoy. I would have enjoyed it more. But tough to take the personal bias out of it with if it was anybody but him. But glad that we got some retribution with his performance on Forward Progress last year.
Yeah, that was a tough season for him, which he'll never live down at this point. Because you know what we're going to do this year? We have to show the career record as well, right? It's not like we're just going to, all of a sudden he's going to be 1-0 at the end of week 1 and we're going to revert to he's amazing. We're going to have to go back to last year. I don't even know how many games he won last year, but you could count him on one hand. I'll tell you that. You can count him on one hand. This is tough for me because I genuinely don't think we've had too many people on that I actually dislike. Like I disliked Gambling Frank Costanza when we had him on. I disliked Shipper when we had him on. I don't know outside of that I've really disliked anyone that we've had on. So
yeah, it's more, I wouldn't put it in a dislike. There's a category of just people that annoy me, which we've already kind of touched on. I'll put Churn in there too. Adam Chernoff Churn in terms of he can hit that Rufus, Eddie Walls, Jeff Ma level of, especially the point in time. It was January of 22. Now that I'm looking, it was like
our first video episode.
Is that the first one? Did Churn have? I don't remember. I didn't watch it on video. Did he have a golf bag behind him? Because all he'd been doing for the last 18 months is hitting shots in a random field, trying to improve his golf game. So yeah, the Churn is one that. But on the flip side, kind of like Dr. Eager, he does do some phenomenal football breakdowns of this is legitimately great info to listen to. So I have to give him credit where it's not like I can be oh, he's an idiot. The guy does put out some very detailed, thorough NFL content.
Okay. We're going to wrap it up right there. 5 tiers. We'll get these lists posted to Twitter, generate some controversy like we did last time. Hopefully we actually do get some videos of people really upset at you, Knish. That's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah, I was going to say, record yourself saying, F Joey K and then post it.
Whether you agree or not, let us know down in the comments below. If you think we missed anything, if you would have changed anything, let us know in the comments below. We do read every single one, and we'll probably revisit this at some point or another down the road. Now, there's been a lot of news in this past week on Twitter. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the situation with Spanky and someone else. Anyways, long story short, Spanky being accused of some things in related, threatening someone or scaring someone. I'm not going to comment on that. I don't know if it's real or not. I don't want to speculate. I assume that at some point or another, there will be more information that comes out on the situation.
We're also recording this hours after this has just initially come out.
Exactly. It would be reckless of me to make an opinion on the situation. Maybe more on it next week, maybe not. We'll figure that out. But Knish, me and you, in the last week or so, some people coming at us. On Twitter. So let's start with you first.
Some people getting into the ring.
Yeah, let's start with you first. So the Tailgate tent, who I like as a person, honestly. I don't know of your relationship or whatever. I've tried to get him on before. Maybe he'll come on at some point or another. But he's watching Hit the Books on Monday. Which, by the way, as always, he's always in there. He's in the chat. It happens. By the way, if you have no idea what Hit the Books is and you're new here, you should really check it out. I don't like to promo Knish's stuff a whole lot, but Hit the Books is part of the Hammer Betting Network. I am the CEO, so I have to do my service here to the business. Hit the Books is honestly the best college football content that exists on the planet. I'm not saying that. This is completely unbiased. I don't like to pump this guy's tires. It's more so Brad Powers than it is Knish that brings a lot of the credibility to the program. But check it out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe leading into college football season. There's going to be a lot of content that's dropping in the next few weeks. Conference previews, futures, and then throughout the season, Mondays and Fridays. These guys do a great show. Anyways, they're doing a show on Monday, a little bit earlier than normal because apparently you had to go the chiropractor or something like that. How's your back holding up right now?
You know what? It was a great adjustment. Someone in the comments said maybe it's because you're laying down all the time. Sir, as a doctor myself, I'll be the one to diagnose that. But yeah, no, good adjustment. Feeling a little better.
Doctor of what exactly?
It depends what the theme is for that. It's flexible. Doctor, economist, medical. It can be depends on what's the situation is.
Because like Eric Eager was actually a doctor. He got a doctorate in something. I don't know what it was. Not like a. He's not MD or anything.
I remember during COVID, I tweet, people like started referring to me as Dr. Knish because I'd put out some, so and that stuck into a lot of people. They still look to me as a medical resource.
I think just you.
Just you. All right. Tailgate 10th tweets out, nothing more brutal than every Monday evening the clowns at Hit the Books obliterating markets with 3 shops open with penny limits for 65 viewers. It's worse than when some people did release shows during BetOnline Sunday openers. Then a little bit of like a next message, I think they are both very good at what they do and know what they're talking about, which begs the question why they're destroying markets knowing there's more in it for them not to do it. Care to share your comments?
So I'll give you, me and the Tailgate, it's funny because most of these people that, I go back and forth with, I work together in some, like, my money takes precedent overall. So me and the tent, I've known the guy, we've been in a Slack together going back, 6 or 7 years. And so I know him personally, and I know he's gotten more into, he's always been a college football guy, but especially the last few years, he's gotten the service up and going. It's been, been kind of a growing business for him. And I think part of it is listen, this is, and you know what? When I first got on Twitter and was growing a following, there would be people that would come at me because I would tweet out my college football plays early on Sunday when BetOnline would open. And
I remember those.
I didn't really understand the full scope of that at that point. So I get it from a sense of, yes, I would love if the markets would open and everybody could get whatever they want down and, there would be no, so like, that's just never the way there always is going to be somebody, first to market or going earlier or one of that. And to be honest with stuff that we've mentioned on the show a bunch of times, there hasn't been like these, like, oh, this line's 2 touchdowns off. You got to get it to, that you got to get in there. The summer stuff is just better now. And I know some of that is him wanting to be able to get more down and be able to release it. And you saw, I think even Rass responded to it today that, if you look at their Twitter, I don't want to misquote them, but he rephrased it of you have to provide some incentive. And we've tried our best to wait. It's not like, the first time a market would open, we would jump on the show and instantly talk about it. We've waited in a lot of cases, weeks, months to talk about some of these markets. But at some point, the season's 6 weeks away, 2 months away. We're going to be talking about win totals and futures now and that stuff. And at a lot of these places, yeah, it is some stuff. Power 5 win totals are as available as they're going to be.
Yeah.
So it is the market that's available now. If you can't get what you want down on it, then you're not going to be able to get down on it. So, or you're just not going to be able to get the number. So listen, I understand the frustration. I get it because people used to come at me about it years ago. It's just the life cycle of sports betting in general. There's already going to be somebody looking to get down earlier than you. It is kind of how I would respond to that.
Yep. The Right Angle Sports account tweeted, love the point Telemachus model made in his last Circles Off appearance. Instead of crying about others ruining early markets, incentivize them not to, make them a better offer, which is interesting in and of itself right there. I think there's inherently a challenge with doing content. Listen, at the end of the day, there's a balancing act between making sure you look out for yourself from a betting point of view, but also making sure that what you're giving out on programs where you're doing content, you firmly believe in that stuff And like, you're not just sending sheep to the slaughter. That's at least the way that I look at things. As long as I've been involved in sports betting, there's always people complaining about people going earlier than them.
For sure.
Whether that's
absolutely
whether that's content or it's someone who's moving the market quietly or whatever. It's just another challenge that we all have to face in sports betting. With Knish, and I'll share this, like, people don't know the structure of the hammer and how it works. Knish and Brad Powers own a percentage of the hammer. Like, they're invested in this as much as I am, as much as Johnny is, a lot of our other content creators. We cumulatively want to grow this into something big and share the pie. So it's not like he's doing it for no reason. I mean, we're trying to put out good content that is useful to the population. Like, Knish can go out on Saturday at 11:45 a.m., 15 minutes before games kick off, and give out picks. It's not doing anyone any service. So, I mean, I understand the frustration. I talked about this with Kirk Evans last week. I think you have to put yourself in other people's shoes to understand where they're coming from. If I had a pick service and I was betting college football and this was my livelihood, and there's people that are publicly giving out plays that I consider to be sharp and moving the market in the direction that I don't want it to move, I would be upset too. But I think he also has to consider your side of the coin as well.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, even, in the there's been a lot of NFL draft is the one textbook example I would use, where 5 years ago it was an absolute cash cow for me, and then a bunch of people started, clicking as soon as those markets are dropping, giving it out, betting for small limits, moving the numbers. At some point, it was, I had to go through an acceptance phase of me calling these people out or DMing them or being angry about it was going to do nothing. It's not going to make them stop doing it. It's not going to make my life easier. It's not going to make it easier for me to get down. There's always going to be somebody trying to go a little earlier. And I agree with Ed's point and the telemetry's point that you've got you've got to either find a way around it or incentivize it or be able to have your stuff better where you can beat it later. Because there's always going to be somebody trying to go as early as they can.
All right. I also came under some fire this week. I'm not going to say the Twitter handle just in case anyone gets offended. Redacted Gambler came at me.
This is the new Frank Costanza now. This guy, he's taking Frank's place as far as firing on Twitter.
So I didn't see this in real time because I had this person muted already, which leads me to believe that it was probably another account beforehand, maybe changed hand. I don't know. Anyways, the tweet is, "Hey, Rob Pizzola, any reason you took credit for the March Madness ball angle on Circles Off as if you thought of it on your own? Someone DM'd it to you after the tourney started. How did you go through team social media accounts before March Madness? Are you lying?" Second tweet, "This just came across my desk from a source of known integrity, and it's a DM between myself and someone else on Twitter. I'm not going to mention their name. I'll just call him X-Man for now." So last week, I was talking with Kirk Evans about this. Ball angle for March Madness. They changed the balls, and I said that I went through social media accounts to look at what teams were using the balls. So here's the full story. This screenshot is a real screenshot that's in the image. Someone reaches out to me, tells me basically what I already know. And my only regret in this situation is maybe not being totally upfront with this person. But this happens to me a lot. So someone, reaches out to me, says, "Hey, I have this angle." And my response is, "I love the dedication. It's probably a really good angle." This is me confirming that I think they're going down the right path because I've already gone down this path before. So it's just in me saying basically yeah, you got something here. I don't want to respond to this person who I interact with very regularly and be like, "Oh, I've known about this for years. I beat you to the punch." That's not how I want to respond to the situation.
Late to the party, idiot.
Cleve TA has brought this up in the past before very publicly. Drew Dinsick has brought it up on his podcast in the past before very publicly. This isn't some angle that's like, reinventing the wheel. Now, where this gets a little bit more complex is this person, which it's not in the screenshot itself, he reaches out to me again and says, this is the list of games where a different ball is being used. Games where both teams did not use the Wilson ball. And he lists them all out. I already have another list from someone else who I have doing this stuff that does not match this list. So I got one guy on Twitter, on X, reaches out to me saying, here are all the games you need to know where both teams didn't use the Wilson ball. I have another list from a personal friend of mine. I don't want to give out the name, I didn't get this pre-approved. But someone who's known out in the space, who's also sent me a list that does not match this list. So, personally, I had to go through social media accounts myself to see which of the lists was correct. So, yes, I did personally go through social media accounts. Where this redacted gambler is wrong, someone DM'd it to you after the tourney started. No. What happened was maybe the first 4 games has started, but all this was done prior to the Thursday and Friday tips for March Madness. So this is someone trying to stir the pot. This is why the screenshot is the way that it is instead of the full context of the conversation. I had reached out to X-Man before this program telling him that I will share the entire contents of the conversation, which I will do, but this is a bunch of talking heads looking for clickbait is what it comes down to. It's actually a shame that I have to respond to this, but I do value my reputation. A lot of people are responding to this like, oh no, Rob Pizzola, and he, redacted gambler. Unfortunately, it's a pattern for him. Not the first time, won't be the last. I'd love to hear the other examples. I'm pretty upfront and honest with people. My regret was I didn't tell X-Man right away, yeah, sorry, dude, I already know about this. I don't need your help. What I actually did, by the way, was actually shared our numbers with him that included the ball angle so that he could cross-reference and decide what he wanted to play. Anyways, I've already spoken way too much on that situation, but I do want to clear the air because I honestly hate when my name is dragged through the mud.
And I saw that. I actually got it sent to me from a few people. It's Rob's canceled now. So I appreciate you clearing that up. This person is definitely the redacted account is I don't know who it is, but it is not a new person to the space. So it's definitely appears to have someone that has a bone to pick with some people, but you being one of them, and obviously got under it. He's made some jokes my way, but nothing that, he was, serious, I would say. But yeah, so that obviously was put out in a way to stir the pot, as you mentioned.
Yes. X-Man, I reached out to him privately. We had a conversation. He said that he did share the screenshot. Was not his intention for it to be posted publicly. Doesn't want any drama. Appreciates having me as a resource to talk through these things. People trying to start some shit for no reason. And that's exactly what happened in this situation. So obviously, the fact that I had this account muted before I had ever seen it or interacted with it leads me to believe that in some way or another, this person has already come after me in the past. And that's all I can say on the situation. But I certainly did not want to make it seem like I invented this angle. But I did go through social media accounts. I did have to, figure out what basketballs they were using in practices and things of that nature. And this was before the March Madness tournament because I was getting conflicting information. So that's the full story and the extent of that. Knish, last time we had you on, I asked you to give a plus EV or minus EV move of the week. You were completely caught off guard as if you had never listened to the end of any episode before. You promoted...
That was 2 times ago. The last time I did the...
No, didn't you do a local fruit juice place or something like that?
Yeah,
you've had the worst plus EV moves in the history of the show. Do you have another one for us this week?
Well, that's why I'm not an originator. I got a plus EV move, and it's go see if you're having any nagging pain, nagging issues, don't just let it especially as you get now it's me and you now in the 30s, the later 30s is when all of the things that you've ignored for your entire life start really cropping up. And one for me, it was my back. So I've had some pelvic and hip and back issues that I was ignoring forever. Just go see a physical therapist, go see a chiropractor, go and get it done. I'm physically, honestly, been feeling the best I have in a long time. And it's because a few months ago, I started going to a physical therapist, getting in a deal, getting adjustment in that. So I would say, plus, take care of your body. Even if you're a younger guy in your low 20s, you will pay it. The father time will come a-calling at some point, as it did for me. And it's a lot easier if you start taking care of that stuff when you're younger than it is when you start doing it if you wait till 35.
So the long dips in the hot tub weren't cutting it. You had to seek out a real professional.
I had to actually, yeah. They said, well, no, sir, you need to actually stretch and do some more activity as opposed to just soaking this thing all day. That doesn't fully do it.
All right, you know what? Still not a great one, but much better than previous episodes. So we're working our way up.
I'm getting there.
If you got some pain, seek out a medical opinion and get it taken care of.
By episode, especially in America where you don't have to wait in line, all that, like the communist healthcare you guys got. But by episode 302, well,
no one's waiting in line for like a registered massage therapist or chiropractor. That's not happening over here. Not a huge fan of the healthcare, but I just want to. It's just so we don't get like a misinformation tag here on YouTube or something. Yeah, like so that. I would. You book an appointment and you go. It's what happens.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take off my Ellen Boston hat and you can get back to finish closing this baby out.
Zach, you got anything?
Plus EV is buying frozen vegetables.
Frozen vegetables.
Yes, I think that the reason
Yeah, I would say that's a minus EV.
I would say that's a horrible way. Yeah,
guys. I'm 25 years old.
Yeah.
I'm 25 years old. Yeah. I have roommates. I have a small fridge freezer space that is shared. It's not that easy to accommodate your fridge situation between three people like that, to have food always ready to go, to be in that situation. So having frozen vegetables that are there, that are just easy to do at the snap of a finger kind of thing, that can be tucked away. It's easy to put away, have on deck. And I know you're going to say, oh, well, you could just have the same thing with fresh vegetables. I wasn't going to say that. People will say that.
Yeah.
And I know that comment is coming. It's more just for timeliness, that kind of thing takes away space from in the fridge that I could put other things that I need in there. So having frozen vegetables, and then they don't also need to be eaten in a certain time span.
If you had more room, would you recommend frozen vegetables as a plus EV? Because they probably taste like shit.
I wouldn't say they taste like shit.
You gotta put a lot of salt and pepper on there. You gotta season those things.
Plus the salt that's in them so they stay fresh in your freezer for 2 years.
Right. I would say that if I different lifestyle or different living situation, probably would not be my plus EV. But over the last little while, this has been very, very helpful for me.
All right.
I would say.
If the Hammer paid you a living wage, you'd be going and getting fresh vegetables daily instead of eating, corn that's been in your that's got the frostbite on it, for 3 months there. So yeah, I feel for you, Zach.
We'll clarify here. If you're 25 years old and you share fridge space with someone else, then get yourself some frozen vegetables.
Yeah. That's all I had. I only had plus EV this week.
I only have a plus EV as well. Listen, I'm a big proponent of telling the truth in life. Being honest, transparent, it's honestly what I stand for. But there are some situations where it's maybe not the best to be truthful. I've been doing this for years. I don't think my wife is going to listen to this episode because I don't think she likes Knish's voice very much. So I think I'm in the clear here. I'm in the clear here.
Oh, baby.
If you got...
How old was she? The golf cart, the caddy girl.
That's not where I'm going with it. But similar. Honestly, I played this card on that trip as well. If you have a spouse, a significant other, whatever, girlfriend, boyfriend, and you go on a trip, that they can't go on, or you do anything for that matter that they cannot do, and you have a great time, you have a blast, you do not come home and tell them you had a great time. You, in fact, do the opposite. You come back home. How was your golfing trip? You know what? Rained every day. Got soaked. Played terrible. You cannot come back home and be like, you know what, babe? It was the best week ever with all my buds. I'm going to do it again in a few months, like I'm planning to. You do not do that. Everything you do without your significant other there, miserable. Sucked. You come up with some way to tell them, you know what, I drank too much on the first night. I was so hungover the rest of the trip, puking my brains out. This is the one instance where I can support lying. I don't feel proud of doing it. But it's worse if I tell her I had a blast and then she's going to feel left out. So sometimes you just got to do what's right to make your significant other feel good. So this is a trick I shared with call customer service many years ago when we first met at MIT Sloan. He's like, I didn't bring the wife out. I said, you know what? I'm going to go home and tell her I had a brutal trip like I always do. He said, what do you mean? I explained the situation. It's worked for me for years. I love my wife to death, but you can't go away from them and come back and be like, I had a blast. Like, no one wants to hear that. Everyone has FOMO, right? Like, you don't want to hear someone else had a great time without you. That's not going to sit well. So the one instance where I support a little bit of fibbing plus EV move of the week, you travel without your significant other. Don't come home and tell them you had an amazing time. I mean, if you want to say it was okay, that's fine. You don't have to go complete opposite end of the spectrum. But trust me, it's worked for me for years. It'll work for you.
Yeah, you got to leave out that and the drinks with the cart girl or whatever it was. So you got to keep that out.
The drinks with the cart girl. I had a female caddy. She's very professional. It's just I felt a lot of pressure.
Never seen a female or heard of anyone having a female caddy in my entire life.
Neither have I.
I swear to God, like that.
Listen, like I'm not like a male chauvinist or anything like that. Like, I don't want this to come across the wrong way. But I play with golf with like men. I'm used to being around men all the time on the golf course. It's not to say that women. I just felt a lot of pressure because it was a woman, and like I felt less manly. Like when I shank a ball into the woods and it's all my buddies around and like this 7-year-old caddy where he's like, yeah, don't worry, you're not even close to the worst player I've seen. Like, I feel great, but I just felt an immense amount of pressure. She was very nice. She read the putts well. Like, I was like, my heart was pumping all day, man. I couldn't play. I couldn't play under those circumstances.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. Anyways, cancel me for that take, but this is how I felt. It's how I felt. I do support female caddies as well. I'm not saying I shouldn't. Maybe if I do it more often, I'll get used to it a little bit more and don't have to be like a macho man trying to swing out of my shoes on every single shot. All right, that's it for us. Make sure you smash that like button down below. If you're not subbed here, sub here on Circles Off. If you're listening in audio form, please, for the love of God, leave us a positive review. All those go a long way to getting us elevated on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We need all that we can get. We want to crack the 10K subs here on YouTube. We're getting closer. We're now up to about 8K, so make sure you smash that like button down below. For myself, Rob Pizzola, Fake Johnny over here on the right, Zach Phillips, my producer, Dr. Uncle K, who joined us here on Circles Off this week.
Dr. Knish, hashtag Mr. Electric.
Hashtag Mr. Electric. Yeah, I think that's it. We're out. Peace out. See you next week.
You guys.